Get that going. There we go. For some reason, I can't do that while I'm sharing my screen. Operator error. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get going. My name is Angela. Thank you guys so much for being here today. This is a call about Community Health Corps Montana, and the call is intended to provide some insight and overview for organizations that might be interested in hosting a Community Health Corps Montana member who have never hosted an AmeriCorps member before, or maybe you have hosted an AmeriCorps member before, but you've never hosted one with our program. So um, the hope is to just kind of give you a broad overview of who we are, what we do, and what it would mean to host an AmeriCorps member. Before we dive in, I'll give a little context on me. I do also want to share it is just me on the call. So if you are writing things in chat, please feel free to write a comment in the comment section, but I likely will not see it until I'm done presenting. But I'd be happy to address your questions at that time. I didn't see any specific questions come through the registration on Zoom, but I will have time for questions at the very end if I don't address or answer something you're curious about. I have been with the Montana Office of Rural Health and Area Health Education Center for coming on 2 years, it'll be 2 years in September. I was hired on specifically for this program opportunity. I have lived experience as an AmeriCorps member. I did 2 terms of service myself in the state of Montana. And then I was hired on with a nonprofit and I helped manage AmeriCorps programs around the region for about 4 years before taking a little break, going back to school, getting my master's in public administration, and then eventually finding myself in this position with the Montana Office of Rural Health and Area Health Education Center, in which I spent the first several months of my position here exploring and developing this program. And then we recently launched with, very recently launched with real people and real sites in January. So very excited. And we are looking to launch the second cohort in September. So thus the quick turnaround with launching and then having host site applications and member applications open again is because we'll launch in September instead of January this next go around. Okay, so that's just a little bit about me. I hope that I get to talk to you and learn about you. I'm sorry, but the purpose of this call, I'm basically going to be talking at you the whole time, and then we'll have some opportunity for question. But I can hang out too and get to chat individually with you if you have time afterwards to learn more about your work and who you are and what you do. But sorry to take the spotlight for a little bit for the time that we have together today. And this might not take a full hour. I'm going to try. I tend to talk relatively quickly. I'll try to keep it a nice, easy pace. Slow me down if you need me too. But we should have time for questions, and we'll just kind of move through it. What I want to do today is I want to talk to you about the 3 leading players of this program, of Community Health Corps Montana. Like, who are they and how do they play a role in this? And then we'll talk about qualifications and expectations for host sites, which I think is the meat of kind of why you guys are here today. You want to learn, what does it mean to be a host site? Who qualifies and what does that look like? And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps, about the application process to host a member. All right, so that's what I got for us. To ground us before we get going too far in this, just take a moment. I'm assuming you guys are all here because you heard about this in a newsletter or an email or on social media, whatever, however you heard it. I'm assuming that then you also maybe went to our website to try to like learn and read a little bit more about us. I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe you didn't. So just to ground us a little bit in this particular program, it is an AmeriCorps program. We're going to talk about that, but I also want to make sure we understand the program focus areas. So this program has 3 main focus areas. And when I say that, what I mean is all of our work is grounded in these areas. So 1 or more of these areas, it's to strengthen mental health and substance use disorder support, enhancing chronic disease prevention and management, and addressing the social determinants or social drivers of health. Our mission as a program is to engage individuals in meaningful service to Montana through community partnerships, which would primarily be our host site partners, to advance sustainable solutions to the state's most pressing health challenges. So just to ground us a little bit in who Community Health Corps Montana is. Hopefully none of that is like new to you and you kind of already knew that. If you didn't, here you go. All right, so Community Health Corps Montana, who puts this together? So as I mentioned, I'm with the Office of Rural Health and Area Health Education Center. It's a mouthful. I know we are headquartered out of Montana State University. If you're not familiar with us and the work that we do, I just want you to be aware our main focuses tend to fall in strengthening healthcare across Montana and working with rural and tribal communities to ensure that they have access to healthcare and training and support in those areas. So we do this kind of in two different buckets. We do a lot of pipeline stuff for emerging professionals. We also do a lot of community engagement, and then we do this other side of like support for folks delivering the work in that professional development. We can talk more about that later. I just want you to know who we are, that we are the facilitators of this program. Community Health Corps Montana is one of the many offerings that our offices provides. And we do have a lot of offerings that we could talk about, but that's who I am employed with, and that is the main character in this program across the state who you would be working with, okay? However, I have mentioned that this program is an AmeriCorps program, and this piece is really important. If you're not familiar with AmeriCorps, buckle up. I got some new exciting stuff for you. Um, it's a it's a federally funded national service program. And so I just want you to be aware of a few things with this, okay? So one, I want you to understand, or at least just be aware of the like breadth and history of AmeriCorps. So AmeriCorps was established under the National Community Service Trust Act in 1993. It's actually modeled off of the Civilian Conservation Corps that came about in the Depression, if you're a history buff and you know anything about that. But it's all grounded in this idea and concept of community service and making an impact in communities. Now, there are AmeriCorps programs in all 50 states and territories across the United States. And each of these programs are going to look a little different. They might all have a slightly different focus area, but they're all grounded in community need. I also just want you to know that there is a history of AmeriCorps in Montana. AmeriCorps programs have been operating in Montana since 1994. And since that time, over 10,000 Montana residents have served in AmeriCorps programs. To date, there are, and I think I need to update this. I don't think that there are 12 different AmeriCorps programs operating in Montana. And this includes, there's different programs, there's national programs and state programs. We're an AmeriCorps state program, and I believe we're one of 7 of the AmeriCorps state programs. But collectively, there's 12 different ones. This picture on this screen is from the Serve Montana Symposium, which is an annual event that AmeriCorps members attend in Helena. And each year it brings together all of the AmeriCorps members serving across the state. There's usually somewhere between 100 to 200 folks that get to attend, depending on where their service term lines up if they're in service during this event. It's pretty cool. Okay, so understand that there is some history to this. There is some breadth to this, some depth to this, right? A lot of AmeriCorps programs. But the other thing that's really important to understand here is that first little bullet, federally funded national service program. So I'm sure you guys are no stranger to federal funds. So this does impact and dictate a lot of what we can and we cannot do, because we are leveraging federal dollars to make this program possible. So when we start to talk about host site partnerships and cans and cannots, a lot of that is grounded in that federal piece. So for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to lump AmeriCorps and more AHEC, my office, into like one bucket. I said I'm going to introduce the 3 main players. We're going to say that the AmeriCorps and more AHEC, we're like the facilitators. We're the ones that are offering this program and kind of administering it and making it possible. So let's look at some of the other ones, which would be our particular members. Oh, I forgot to put this in here. Our members. So as I mentioned, we just launched in January. We just had a news story featured yesterday that talked with one of our host site supervisors and with me, and kind of talks about the impact of the program. QR code there if you want to scan, you can read or listen. And this picture is a picture of our current cohort at our February training that we had in Helena. And I thought they did a great job on the news story. I didn't do a great job leading up into that. Apologies, but it's there if you want it. All right. So Our members are another big piece of this program, right? And just to also give you some concepts to give you a little idea of what we're currently doing. Here is some examples of some of our current host sites within this first cohort year, where they are, kind of what they're doing. You can also find this on our website. On the member page, it has a little picture of each of our members, kind of their why I serve statement and who they're serving with, linked to that organization. So just to give you an idea, all of these organizations provided an application, and in their application, they provided some project work for their AmeriCorps member that was grounded in one or more of our focus areas, right? That mental health, substance use, chronic disease, and social drivers of health. All of these projects were grounded in that. And this is just an example. That's not all of our, we have 9 members currently serving to keep the slide not too busy. They're not all on here, but just to give you some idea of this. I also should specify too, okay, so let's talk more about members, but I want to name, there's a lot on this slide. There's a lot on all of these slides. I wouldn't typically do that, but I will send these slides to you in a follow-up email. And so I wanted you to have all the context and information on the slide. So I should have said that earlier. So if you're feverishly taking notes, don't worry, all the main chunky stuff is written out in the slide. So if we consider more AIC and AmeriCorps one player, the other player is definitely the members and who is serving in Community Health Corps Montana. We do anticipate a good mix. And what I mean by that is of age and ability, many emerging professionals, some recent college graduates. This picture on the screen is a picture of our current cohort. We do recruit nationally, but we really are trying to target Montana residents. In our current cohort, only one of our members moved from out of state to participate in the program. We're completely open to that and welcoming to that, but as much as we can, we do want to try to recruit from the community so that those AmeriCorps members have an opportunity to grow and support and connect with the community that they're already in, right? And then they already bring some familiarity of that community, and we've seen that be pretty great. We do have a few requirements for our AmeriCorps members. They do have to be at least 18 years of age or older. We do tend to see folks that are a little, we haven't really had anyone apply straight out of high school, but we are open to that. But in general, what we've seen from the project applications from host sites is that there is a certain level of professionalism. So we do anticipate most of our participants being a little further along in their professional career and age so that they can handle kind of that heavier workload. But we do not require a college degree. This was a very deliberate approach to our program that came about in the planning phase, particularly because the program aims to focus on rural and tribal communities, and because we want those rural and tribal community members to serve within this program. We heard feedback that a college diploma might be a barrier to getting community members to participate in this. So we do not require a college degree. We do require that folks have reliable transportation because we do require our AmeriCorps members to come to different events. So I showed you that picture of the service symposium. That is an event in Helena. We also will have program-specific trainings that we offer to our members, and we will require them to come a handful of times to Helena to those events. So we ask that they have transportation to be able to do that. And part of that is AmeriCorps, along with being this federally funded national service program, it does look a little different. This isn't, I like to think of it as like a spectrum. Like this isn't an internship, but it's not necessarily like professional full-time employment either. It's kind of this in between. And when I say that, what I mean is we're going to expect our AmeriCorps members to deliver professional level work. But what we do as this other party over here, as this other player, is we're going to provide them with a lot of support and training so they can meet those professional demands. And that's what those member trainings are meant to be. They're all meant to be very relevant and grounded in the work that the members might be delivering so that they can grow in this term of service, not just as a community member, but as a professional, and they can meet your professional demands at that host site. Again, part of the reason why we aren't requiring that college degree too is so that we can help them grow into this professional opportunity. It's important to know some of the things that AmeriCorps members do receive in the program. Our AmeriCorps members will be receiving a bi-weekly living allowance. This is a flat rate. It is not an hourly rate. They are not hourly employees. In fact, they're not employees at all. They are called AmeriCorps members. Again, that federal program, that terminology is really important. The feds want to know how that money is being spent in that AmeriCorps program, and they want that representation. So not employees, not volunteers, not interns, they're AmeriCorps members. They receive a biweekly living allowance of $1,280, an education award. So this is dollars that they can put towards going to school. So let's say that they don't have a college degree, they come and do this program and it sparks some interest. Oh no. And they want to do that. I'm so sorry. I'm just realizing that we have a bunch of people sitting in the waiting room and it's just me and I'm firing away over here. I am so sorry. I don't know if any of these people are still there. They've been sitting there for like 20 minutes. Okay, well, if you're still with us, I'm going. I apologize. This is the challenge of being the only one seeing the driving screen. But we'll keep going and don't worry, I'll send the recording. So if you missed the first little bit, we're talking about our Community Health Corps of Montana members and who they are and what they receive. So some of the benefits of being in this AmeriCorps program is that Siegel Education Award. These are dollars they can put towards continuing their education. If they wanted to go back to school, if they wanted to continue and get an advanced degree, if they wanted to go to college for the first time, if they had student loans debt, they can use it to pay off their student loan debt. We also offer a national member assistance program. It's very similar to like an employee assistance program. So members have access to mental health services, to life coaching. Actually, it includes like legal services as well. So we've got a handful of things in there. Um, and I already mentioned that relevant program training to help with service projects and deliverables. Another piece, I mentioned that this is an AmeriCorps term of service. So again, that kind of like, if we think about this as like, here's an internship, here's a professional gig, right? Like employment, AmeriCorps is kind of in the middle. We have that higher expectation for professional deliverables, but we're going to provide a lot of support to those members to meet those deliverables. So trainings is one way that we do that. Another way that we do that is we have bi-monthly touch points with our Community Health Corps Montana members. So we do this in two ways. We have a cohort call where the whole cohort will meet and talk. And then we also have individual touch points with the members where literally it's just a phone call once a month to kind of be like, hey, how's it going? What resources do you need? What challenges are you experiencing to, again, provide that additional layer of support? In return, Community Health Corps Montana members are expected to serve 40 hours a week. And we do say serve, again, that AmeriCorps terminology I mentioned, federally funded, right? They're AmeriCorps members, they're not employees, they're not volunteers, they're not interns. They're also not working, they're serving. Don't worry, it's okay if you don't get it today, but just to explain why I'm saying that, we expect them to serve 40 hours a week from September 14th to July 30th will be this next cohort. We expect them to adhere to program policies and allowable service activities. And this is important here because this also overlaps with what we can allow our host sites to ask the members to do. So again, AmeriCorps being a federally funded program, think federal employee, right? So there's things that we can't have federal employees do, right? Federal employees aren't allowed to lobby. Neither can AmeriCorps members. They can't register folks to vote. They can't proselytize. They can't support in any way any services connected to any kind of abortion services. There's a handful of other things specific to our program. AmeriCorps members, and these are some important pieces to think about as you're thinking about applying to this program and if this program is the right fit. AmeriCorps members cannot fundraise. So if you were like, I want an AmeriCorps member to come in and help me write grants and to fund and to do our annual fundraising event, unfortunately, this program is not the right fit. AmeriCorps members as a whole can help, can fundraise, but we're not going to allow members in our program to do that because to do that, AmeriCorps members then and the program itself has to track the funds that they raise and then document how those funds were funneled back into the activities that the AmeriCorps member did. So they can't do fundraising activities for like general organizational fundraising. And then we have to provide all that documentation against auditing. And currently we just don't have the capacity to be able to work with partners to get all of that required tracking and do that. And so within this program, we're saying we don't allow members to fundraise. Another important piece for that federal thing, and this probably comes as no shock to anyone if you're working with federal partners or you're federally employed yourself, we don't do remote work. So AmeriCorps members are not allowed to work remotely. We do expect that our host site partners provide them with an in-office space, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about host site responsibilities. But when we're talking about adhering to program policies and allowable service activities, these are some of the things that are part of that larger AmeriCorps dynamic as to who is like facilitating this program. I mentioned that we have program trainings. They're typically 3 days. They kind of tend to start in the afternoon. We'll have a full day the second day, and then they'll end in the afternoon of the third day to allow for travel because we do have service locations all over the state. These will be September, November, March, and July. And then I've already mentioned that we have those monthly program calls, one-on-one support calls. And this is another piece that is really important. AmeriCorps members are required to identify as AmeriCorps members on the staff or volunteers. We've kind of talked about that already, but we will provide them with AmeriCorps gear. You can see in this picture, everyone's wearing a vest or a t-shirt. We also have pins and lanyards. It is an AmeriCorps requirement that AmeriCorps members are always identified as such. So even if they're not in their AmeriCorps shirt, they need to be in a pin or they need to have their lanyard on. They have to always have something on them that says that they're an AmeriCorps member. And that, again, is connected to that like federal funding piece. Okay, I've talked a lot. I've gone kind of quickly, but again, all of this detail is also provided on these slides, which I will provide to you at the end. So we've talked a little bit about Moore Ahec out of Montana State University, who I'm employed with, the main facilitator of the AmeriCorps program. We talked briefly about AmeriCorps, what is AmeriCorps. Then we've talked a little bit about those members and what we expect and anticipate from them. So let's get into the bulk. This is why you guys are here. You guys would be potential host sites. So let's talk about eligibility and kind of what to expect, okay? So, few things here. Host site eligibility. You must be a public agency or organization. You cannot be a private organization. You cannot be a for-profit organization. Again, because this is a federally funded opportunity, it's one of those federal requirements for us to partner with you. We are going to prioritize rural and tribal communities. Now, we do have members serving in some of Montana's urban areas. We have 2 members serving in Bozeman. We have a member serving in Missoula. If you are in one of our urban hubs, I'd still encourage you to apply. It does not mean that you would not get a member, but we do score the applications. In full transparency, you get additional points if your project work is serving rural and tribal communities and if your location is in a rural or tribal community. We'll talk more about the scoring piece in just a minute. We do anticipate that our host sites would offer a service plan that aligns with program focus areas, and we've mentioned those already. It does not have to align with all of them, but what we saw in the planning phase is that there's a lot of overlap, right? If you're working in chronic disease prevention and management, you're also usually doing something connected to social determinants of health. So we understand there's a lot of overlap in those 3 focus areas, but we're really just looking to make sure that your project is grounded in at least one of those. This is something new this go around. This second cohort is a slightly longer term than our first cohort. So this first cohort is serving from January to August. It's about 8 months, which is about 1,200 hours of service. With this second round, it will be September to July, which is 1,700 hours of service at minimum. So our host site cost share has gone up. It will be 15.5. This is not all due at once. We will ask for the first payment to be before the member shows up. It's literally like the Friday before the member shows up, and then we'll do it and 3 payments after that. We can be pretty flexible on this. Talk to me if this is a barrier or a challenge for you. We can certainly talk about that. I also want to name that we were really fortunate in the first cohort to have some financial support. The Montana Healthcare Foundation is interested in providing a lot of support to some of our tribal partners. I don't have confirmation on that just yet for the second cohort, but I anticipate that we'll be able to secure that again. And then the Montana Public Health Institute has a capacity grant currently that I think is $15,000. They are involved in this program. They're represented on our advisory committee. So is the Montana Healthcare Foundation. Um, so they're involved in reviewing the application piece and are very eager for that capacity grant to cover exactly this. So you could write that capacity grant for the host site cost share of your AmeriCorps member. And I mean, nothing's guaranteed, right? But like barring something really strange, they're very happy for that capacity grant to go towards this. Okay. We'd also ask that our host sites provide members with relevant project materials, including office space and a work computer. Again, members can't work remotely, so we do need the host site to actually have a brick and mortar space that the members can come to. Members will have to complete things on the computer, regardless of what your project work is for them. Maybe you want them always in schools and doing community engagement. We still want them to have access to an email. We would expect and anticipate that you would set them up an email, that you would set them up with a work computer, just like they're an employee. Even though I've just spent the last 20 minutes telling you they're not an employee, we would still anticipate you onboard them like that. And quite frankly, we'd want you to have the capacity to provide member oversight and support and capacity to engage with the CHCM program. So what I mean by this is we do ask host site supervisors to provide roughly 5 hours of supervision a week. Again, this isn't an internship, this is an employment. We're going to do a lot of member support, but we want our partners to also do that as well. While we want to be building capacity in these very important areas in these communities, we also want this to be a transformational experience for our AmeriCorps members. And we're going to do all that we can to support the AmeriCorps members, but a lot of that transformational experience is hinged on you as our partners and what you can provide, the overview of the work that you can provide for them, the connection to the community that you can provide for them. It's tricky because we want to give you and build capacity with you, but quite frankly, you have to have a little bit of capacity to build the capacity, right? So we hope that look at your workloads and where you're at, right? And it is a commitment, and I don't want to mislead you in that. It does get easier as your member gets onboarded and they get comfortable with the community, but it is still onboarding essentially a new employee and a new emerging professional employee who's going to need a little extra help in the beginning and still going to need touch points throughout the term of service. We'd also ask that our host sites review and sign member biweekly timesheets. Now, I mentioned members receive a biweekly living allowance. They're not paid an hourly wage. However, their hours are crucial because they are connected to that education award that I mentioned earlier, which is held by the National Trust and is also all wrapped up in those federal requirements, right? So those biweekly timesheets are very important. We have to be very methodical, intentional with those, and we ask that you review them, you sign them, they come over to us, we review and sign as well. We'd also ask that host site supervisors participate in our September orientation in Helena. Now, our trainings are roughly 3 days. We ask that site supervisors participate in the first half and the second half of that training. So it's really like half of the first day and half of the second day. So like a full day. We will have virtual option for that. We did receive feedback that folks would have preferred to have been there. So just so you know, virtual option isn't always the best. I'm limited on technology and how much I can do for that, but it will be in Helena in September. And we'll have monthly program calls for host site supervisors as well. There's also 2 member evaluations. So we'll do a midterm evaluation and we'll do an end of term evaluation. We'll provide you with those templates and some context in that and some follow-up on that. This is, again, one of those ways where AmeriCorps is different because we want to support you in how you support and manage your AmeriCorps member. AmeriCorps host sites are not actually allowed to discipline their members if there were any challenges. We always have to come in as that third party and facilitate. And same as that goes with like those evaluations, right? So like hopefully those are always going to be really positive and good, but we're going to play that third party and kind of come in and help and support with that and support that member development alongside you. This is meant to be a collaborative team piece, and hopefully rather than adding more additional steps or red tape, it just makes it feel more supportive and can take a little bit off of you so that you're not having to do all of that on your own, but we do anticipate you be involved in it. Again, we already mentioned identify members as AmeriCorps members, not staff, and adhere to program policies and procedures. So this is another piece I'm going to pause here for this HOSITE piece. So we've already mentioned, like, think about the AmeriCorps members as kind of like a federal employee, right? So there's things they cannot do. And so we're going to be looking at that in your application. But something that I didn't mention that I also want you to be thinking about should you want to continue and apply and host a member, AmeriCorps placement cannot duplicate, replicate, like in any way what a current member is doing or a current staff member is doing, and it can't displace a current employee. So what I mean by that is if you have an employee at your office and they have a general employee outline and project work that they're working on, we can't bring an AmeriCorps member on to do something that looks very similar to them. This would be replicating their work. That's not allowable under the federal statutes for AmeriCorps. We can't do that as a program. The other thing is AmeriCorps cannot displace employees. So, I get it, like money is tight right now, things are hard, but it can't be like you have a gap in your, or a hole in your staff, like maybe somebody left or something like that. And rather than hiring another employee, you're going to hire an AmeriCorps member. It doesn't work that way. But what we can do is we can say, hey, we have this new idea or this new project we've been thinking about. We're not totally ready yet to hire an employee on this. That's where an AmeriCorps member would sit, right? That's where you could bring an AmeriCorps member in to build that capacity, to start to kind of flush things out. And the hope would be eventually maybe that's leading to employment. Maybe it's hiring the AmeriCorps member, maybe it's creating other project works, right? It's all part of that like building capacity. But we want to be really careful that we're not displacing and we're not duplicating what current staff does. And so that's something that comes up in that HOSITE application. Okay, a lot on that slide. I hope that makes sense. Nobody's camera is on, so I have no idea if anyone's with me just talking to the abyss out here. Okay, let's talk a little bit more. Okay, I want to talk to you about,
could I jump in?
Yeah.
This is
Yes,
Shannon from
please do.
Missoula.
Hi, Shannon.
I just want to sort of clarify that whole piece about you can't duplicate what someone else is doing. So, and you and I talked last month or whatever a little bit, but I just want to make sure I clarify that I understand this. So
Yes.
we're excuse me, we're currently a one-person operation, me,
Mhm.
and we really want to expand
Mhm.
and sort of build that capacity. But essentially, at least at the moment, what I was sort of envisioning was that an AmeriCorps would be great to help with that expansion, but it
Mhm.
would be doing pretty similar work to what I am doing, but just allow us to do more of it, right? So if I'm outreaching to businesses, let's say I outreach to 10 businesses a week, having an AmeriCorps would help us reach out to 20 businesses a week or, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not exactly duplicating what I'm doing, but it's expanding. And is that
Yes.
okay?
Perfect. That's beautiful. Like when and I do remember our email correspondence. Yes, like this is a perfect example of like, this is prime for an AmeriCorps member, right? Like you're in a position where you're working towards a transition, right? And not in
Mm-hmm.
a space yet where it's like, okay, we're ready to bring on an employee, but we're ready to build capacity. Perfect. Yes, there can be times where an AmeriCorps member is going to do a task that you do, right? But if we were to print out your, oh my God, my mind is blanking. Like your work plan, your like your offer letter, like whatever that is, right? Like that details out your task. It's going to look different than the AmeriCorps member, just as a sheer because of your position that you hold, how much more responsibility you have, right? Like they can
Sure.
help you do some of your tasks, but it shouldn't look exactly the same.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Thank
an
you.
example of yeah, no, that's a good one. I think like an example of this, I'm gonna go my background, forgive me, but my background is in environmental sciences. I'm learning health. But previously we've worked with in my previous position, I've worked with the Forest Service and we would have AmeriCorps members that would go out and help spray invasive weeds. Now they're doing that alongside Forest Service employees. They're all out there spraying the weeds. But the Forest Service employees are the ones that are also making that schedule, that are writing the reports. There's a lot more into it. It's just that this one task overlaps with the AmeriCorps member, but their overall outflow of their work doesn't totally line up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the question. That's such a good question. Also, thanks for engaging with me. It feels so strange just like talking to no one.
I know I've been there.
And I'm glad you're here. Sorry you sat in the waiting room for a little bit. Didn't see folks in there, so sorry about that. Um, okay, let's talk. So we've talked a little bit about that piece, and I'll definitely have some time for questions too, and so we can talk more questions. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the host site application and what that would look like. So if all of this is sounding good, if you're like, yes, this is meeting my expectations. I do think I have an opportunity that wouldn't duplicate or displace current staff. And it would fall in line with those like federal requirements, and it falls in lines with the program's focus areas. Yes, okay, you're still with me. Good. The next piece would then be this application step. Um, what we're looking for is we're looking for applications that include a scope of work that outlines and aligns with at least one of the focus areas. We've already talked about that. Excuse me, and outlines project work within that focus area that is going to expand organizational capacity. So just like you were saying, Shannon, like they would allow you to reach more people, right? They're going to allow you to build those partnerships, to get into the community more. Like, yes, A plus plus, that's what we want to see. That's the expectation that we want. What we don't want is necessarily for an AmeriCorps member to come in and you want them to sit at your front desk and answer the phone, right? Like that's not expanding necessarily your capacity, and that looks a little bit like they're replacing an employee that could probably be sitting there answering their phones for you. I should have said that earlier. That's another good example, right? Um, and we do want enough detail to understand what you expect out of your member, and to demonstrate that those expectations adhere to allowable activities, that it's non-duplicative and it's non-displacement. Member experience and support matters. So coming back to the fact, again, it's not an internship, it's not employment. And what we want and what we're aiming for is for these transformational experiences with these emerging professionals. The hope is that they're coming out of this different, not only because they're more connected with their community and more grounded in what it means to provide service to their community, but that they've grown professionally, right? They've experienced new things, they've pushed outside of their comfort zone. So again, more than sitting there answering telephones or more than sweeping a floor, right? Like, and those can be like, it's not that an AmeriCorps member couldn't answer a phone, but that should not be the bulk of what they're doing, right? We do want to see something in that. Your applications are reviewed by our advisory committee. And I didn't mention this earlier. It is on our website. We have an advisory committee, the Montana Office of Rural Health and Area Health Education Center. So there are 5 area health education centers across the state of Montana. Directors from all 5 of those area health education centers are on our advisory committee, along with representation from the Montana Public Health Institute, which I mentioned earlier. The Montana Nonprofit Association is also on there. Montana my goodness, my mind just went blank. The Montana Healthcare Foundation is also on there, a handful of other folks. And these folks are all doing work in Montana, rooted in health and rooted in these communities. They're invested in this AmeriCorps experience for our members and in those focus areas. Now, I don't want to like make this feel like this insurmountable and big hill of a mountain to write this application. We did try to make it as easy as we possibly could. If you have not reviewed the application, the first introduction to it will walk you through. I think there's something like 36 questions, but only 9 of them are like open-ended questions, and it'll detail the 9 that are open-ended for you, to give you some time to think about those and work on those. I don't want you to get consumed with this. You can also answer those open-ended questions in bullet points. It doesn't all have to be paragraphs. This isn't a grant application, okay? But we do want to be able to read your application and get a good understanding of what you want from your member and understand what the member will be doing. And this is important for us so that we can adhere to those federal requirements, but also because we play a pivotal role in that member recruitment piece. And so one of the things that we bring to the table, again, as that player, is we're already recruiting for current members. And we're going to recruit across the country, but we're also going to heavily recruit within communities around Montana. And we'll do the initial screening and interview of members. And then we'll match members with potential host sites and ask that host sites take that second interview. And I think I talk about that a little bit here in the following slides. But do know that that's something we bring to the table. If you have potential members that you're like, we have this volunteer, or we know we work with this club or whatever, the more that you can be engaged in bringing recruitment, the better. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. So you can participate in recruitment, but do understand that role is primarily held with us, and we'll do those initial screenings. So this is another reason why we want that application to outline like what are you looking for? What do you want? Not only in those job duties, but in the overall person of your member. Like what are you looking for? Okay. Host site applications close May 8th. And I do want to say that applying does not guarantee you a spot in the program. I already mentioned that applications will be reviewed and scored by a staff and advisory committee members, and follow-up selection will happen by May 22nd. At the latest, we'll let you know by May 22nd, like, yes, you're in, um, or unfortunately, we don't think that we can support a project like this at this time. Something new that we're going to do this year, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that selection and placement phase, okay? So in our first cohort, we did this a little differently. We learned some stuff. So we're going to try stuff a little differently this go around. So what we're changing here is that in this first phase, when we're reviewing these host site applications, we anticipate approving more host sites than we are able to fill. So we have a federal grant. We are limited on how many members we can place according to that grant. In our first go around, we did receive more host site applications than we were able to fill. And we selected and scored them and then only ran with the ones that we thought we could fill. And then life happens, right? And then we had some stuff shuffle around. We had some host sites that needed to withdraw because of changes in the organization. And we had some that were a little more challenging to fill because of placements and things like that, right? So what we're going to try this go around, just full transparency, is if you have a good application and it aligns with our focus areas, we're going to approve and we're going to move forward. And we want you to be a part of this. Then what we're going to do is we're going to recruit and match with our members. At any given time, we will probably give you 2 to 3 applicants to interview, and we'll probably always try to do them in a bundle so that you can kind of look at them together. And we'll ask you to conduct the second interview. You get to make the final selection of who your member is, but we have to make the offer. And so this is another reason why we're doing this, is because we also experienced some challenges with the timeline of things. So because this is a federally funded grant, we've got these dates. We don't have a lot of flexibility on these dates. We have to adhere to these dates and we have to get folks onboarded by these dates. Full transparency, they're getting onboarded into a federal program. It is not easy to onboard them. They have to do background checks. They have to get into the AmeriCorps software, and we have to get them into MSU. So it takes a little while to get them onboarded. And so there is a little bit of urgency in this second phase. When we're interviewing and recruiting and then we hand them off to you, we do need you to interview them in a timely manner, ideally within a week of handoff, and then letting us know who you would like to select. And then we'll make that offer to that person. So here's where it is. So we're going to approve more host sites than we think we could actually fill. And then once all the positions are filled, additional approved host sites would no longer be eligible for a member. And so I don't want to pin anyone against anyone, but this is our attempt as smooth or unsmooth as it is, we'll see how it goes. It's year two. We're learning. This is our attempt to try to get partners. We need you to be engaged in that second phase. We need you to interview quickly. We need you to make that selection. And as much as you're able, we need you to also support recruitment in your community. Because when you have candidates that are specific to your area and are interested and want to be there, it's more likely that we can interview, get them to you, and you're going to fill that position a little faster. I don't anticipate this is going to get like super crazy and really competitive, but I do want to be transparent that that's what the process looks like this year because that's not how we've done it previously. And I'm happy to talk about that more if you have concerns or questions about that. And then that next phase would really be that onboarding piece. And so what we're hoping for is applications are currently open for members. We will announce our host sites in early June. You'll know towards the end of May. And once we've got all of those established, we'll put it on our website. So before we start interviewing for members, we'll start interviewing in June. They'll know the host sites, and then we can interview for those specific host sites and match them to you relatively quickly. The hope is that in July, you would be doing your interview with your potential members. And then in August, we have all month to do our onboarding for them to start in September. This is the dream. It probably won't happen quite like that, but we're going to shoot for that. And that's what that's going to look like this year. Okay. Again, I'll share these slides with you because I know that there's a lot. So whew, I don't know how, I think we covered a lot of this. So I wanted to talk to you about the three leading players of Community Health Corps Montana. So again, we kind of did more AHEC and AmeriCorps as one player, right? We are the facilitators, the funders, the administrators. Then we have the specific members, the Community Health Corps Montana members themselves, who those folks can be, their requirements, what we expect from them. And then you guys, potential host sites, partners, and the expectations that we have for you guys to participate in this program. That's who we're considering our three leading players of Community Health Corps Montana. We looked at qualifications and expectations for host sites. I went through that really quickly, but again, you'll have those slides. And a lot of that we've also tried to put on our website, and I'm absolutely available if you have questions or concerns on that. And then we talked about next steps and the process for becoming a host site. Again, that does look a little different this year. Happy to talk more details about that, but essentially the next step would be getting that application in. Applications are due May 8th. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share possibly if I know how. Did I do that? And then open it up for questions. If I can clear as mud, if I can clarify anything, please ask away. Yes. Yes, Leah.
Hi there, Angela, right?
Yes, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, my name's not on the thing.
Oh,
Sorry
no
about
worries,
that.
no worries. Um, my name is Leah Fitch-Brody, and I am at the Missoula Public Health Department, where we actually do have Willow, one of our AmeriCorps members. Yeah, so we're really excited. So I actually I work with Shannon. I'm on the board of the nonprofit that she runs, and I am a previous AmeriCorps member. And I do have a,
Yes.
yeah. Um, so I think if we do this, I think I have some ideas. It sounds like, with Willow, uh, she's kind of spread between two different organizations, right? And so you guys
Mhm.
are you willing to do that?
Yes. Yes, good
Um,
question. Yeah, so we didn't talk about that. So do you mind if
yeah,
I
please.
clarify? So
Yeah.
so we do have a current member who is split between two host sites. This is 100% allowable if you, especially to meet that cost share, right? Like that can be a barrier. And if there is some project that you're already working in collaboration with another organization and you need some additional capacity on that project, you guys could write a proposal together and then co-host a member. Yeah. Thank you. I
Yeah.
didn't specify that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
No worries. And I think too, so the other thing that I was just reflecting on was with the Recovery Friendly Montana organization that we're considering doing this with, they are a statewide group. And I think one of the things that I did a lot when I was at an American Vista was like I like my community, like I was based in Missoula and it was my community, right? And I think about like I just am curious if there's any kind of concern about like there being like the state of Montana or the rural parts of Montana is that person's community. And so I don't know, just was reflecting on that. So any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, so currently we do have a member serving in Sydney, Montana.
Okay.
So we do have some rural representation, and we have five members serving with tribal programs and tribal organizations on reservations. Um, a lot of those folks came from those current communities. So they were already a part of that community. And I think that that can help because they're already a part of it. They already feel like they're a part of it. And now we're just enriching how they show up with that community. But particularly this year, our member that's serving out in Sydney is our one member that moved out of state to come and do this. But she is thriving. And a lot of that is because she has such wonderful support from her host site supervisor. Her host site supervisor played an integral part in helping to set up housing for her and got her housing leads. Was not able to provide housing. You don't have to provide housing, but connected her to housing leads and then has done an excellent job bringing community events to her attention. And so Sammy just sent me an email this morning telling me that she's helping with a spelling bee in town and will be going to help judge a spelling bee. And she's going to get service hours for that. Like that can still count as part of her AmeriCorps term of service. She's loving it. She's only been there since January and she just full transparency, she has already applied. Her application is in for next year. She wants to stay. Like she loves it. But I think a lot of that has to do with that like host site support. We're gonna do what we can as well to make them feel like they're a part of a cohort so that she feels like she's a part of this larger program. But she's 5 hours away from the nearest service member. Like she's pretty far. Um, so does that kind of answer your question? Did I kind of get it?
Well, so I mean, yeah, that's so again, like, yes, because Sydney is her community, right? Like, and when I moved to Missoula to become an AmeriCorps member, and Missoula became my community. And so what I'm saying is, like, this particular, like, if we were to apply, like, this person's community would be multiple communities because it is a statewide endeavor,
Oh, I
right?
get you. I get you.
I
Okay.
just am curious if that fits with kind of the idea, like you're supposed to be immersing yourself in the community, and really it would be a broader. So that's why
Oh,
I'm curious.
I got you. Oh, I'm not worried about that at all. That sounds amazing. Statewide program sounds awesome. Like, please do that. And I do think that they're still going to be headquartered in Missoula, right? Like, they still have to have an office with you. They still have to have a sense of community within your office. And our office does a lot of things statewide as well, so we can support with that too. So as long as I think they have this sense of place within your organization, we can also help support this sense of belonging with these statewide connections.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that helps me. Thanks.
Gotcha. Good question. Good question. I think I saw one come through the chat. Rochelle, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I put it in the chat. I don't have reactions for some reason on my phone, so I couldn't raise my hand. I guess I was just curious if you guys have a list of people who are like, we're interested, but we were hoping to partner with somebody as far as cost share is concerned, or if it's in the application, to request those potential available funding opportunities or partials. What's that process like?
Yeah, good question. So what I can tell you right now is my understanding, Montana Healthcare Foundation will fund, and this is what they did this last year. I don't have confirmation for this year, but they're interested in funding tribal programs. Montana Public Health Institute wants you to apply to the capacity grant, but you can specify that we are requesting these grant funds to cover an AmeriCorps host site member. And again, I can't guarantee anything, but they're excited and they want to see those come through. And I think that grant is $15,000, so it would leave you like 500. Um, and that one I've already talked to them about. Like that capacity grant is open now. It's already available. You could apply today. They're looking for those to come through to say that you want it for host site share. Montana Healthcare Foundation is the one I have to confirm with. I don't have partnerships. I would say that if you are wanting to do this in collaboration with someone, we would push that back on you and be like, who are you working with? Like, what are your programs that would make sense for you to work with somebody else on that? Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if you have concerns, let's say that like you're like, I want to put in, but I'm applying to this capacity grant to cover the funding. One of the questions is like a checkbox for all of the things that you can meet. Just leave the like funding piece unchecked, and then it has a comment section of like, if anything was unchecked, like why? And you could just say, like, we're waiting on confirmation from this grant from whoever for the funding to cover this. And that's cool. It doesn't get counted against you. It's just because I talk with Montana Public Health Institute. Again, they're on the advisory committee. So like when it comes to review time, they could be like, yes, we saw this grant application come through, blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of make sure we're all on the same page.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions, concerns, anything else I can clarify? I know that this is a lot because particularly if you're not familiar with AmeriCorps, it's this whole new federal program, and like all federal programs, it has lots of rules and regulations. And then if you're not familiar with our office, like there's lots of nuance and new things that I could be talking about right here. So if you're sitting with this and you're like, this was a lot to digest, and later you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me, you can call me. I'm happy to discuss this. I will send this recording and all the slides to everyone who registered for the call. I've got you guys in Zoom there, and so I'll make sure I get that out. But anything else in the final? We've got like 2 minutes. Anything else? Thank you all so much. Yeah, Shannon.
I was just going to say thank you.
Oh.
Thank you for, I know it is sort of weird presenting to a bunch of black squares, but I appreciate the presentation. And yeah, since we did miss the first 10 or 15 minutes or whatever, I'll look forward to the slides. No, that's fine. I totally get it. I've done the same thing. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to see applications from all of you guys. Please stay engaged. Sorry for everyone who sat in the waiting room for like 15 minutes. I just got started on the presentation, didn't see you, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's like 4 people sitting in here. I'm so sorry." Thanks for hanging out. I'm impressed. I was like, they're probably all like left by now, but thanks for that. All right. I'll hang out if anybody has any like specific questions they specifically want to ask that you felt like was too weedy for the whole group. I'll sit here for a little bit. But other than that, thank you guys so much.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.